Well, hi, everyone. This is Michael, and welcome to the Dreamers and Doers podcast, episode number 56. And I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. We know that you have plenty of options out there in the podcast universe. So thank you for choosing ours. And at LoveWorks, we like to say that you are never too young to be a dreamer, and you are never too old to get started working on that dream of yours.
And our hope with the Dreamers and Doers podcast is that each week our special guest is going to connect with you wherever you find yourself today, and they're going to inspire you to become the best version of yourself for tomorrow.
Well, Carolyn, speaking of becoming the best version of yourself, are you ready to talk a little bit about personal growth?
Every week, Michael, I'm excited to talk about personal growth.
Well, I'm glad that you like to have this conversation with me. Normally, we curate different types of personal growth resources that are out there. So we have a blast curating music and books, podcasts, and blogs. But today, we're going to take a little different angle, and we're going to talk about setting the stage, creating a great environment for personal growth. So Carolyn, I have a feeling this is where we're going to have students lean in. They might be curious, what do you mean by setting the stage and creating an environment? So is there a rhyme and reason with your personal growth strategy?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, I think with everything, there's an importance to environment and how that's going to affect like what you do. And so when you're in personal growth mode, that has to do with your surroundings, of course, as well. But I would say as well as music. And, Michael, we've talked a lot about music, but I've also want to add in a little bit of something also more upbeat than just music, which is, I would say, sunshine. So this is kind of my way of that I've been getting ready for personal growth, and knowing that it's also going to affect my mood and boost my mood is I open the windows. And that's been a huge part of my personal growth time. Is I like to put on some music, and usually music that doesn't have any lyrics to it or has really simple lyrics to it. And so if anyone's out there, they know lo-fi beats on YouTube, or if they know sunny beats on Spotify, those are two great playlists that will help kind of set the mood, but also not cloud your mind with what's going on lyrically. And so I find that that's really helpful for me. And then, of course, the sunshine, I don't know what it is, Michael, but it's made a huge difference. So I got to shout out to the sun.
No, that's good. Good thing that you're not living out in Seattle or Portland.
I know. I used to dream of living in places like that, but now I'm like, here comes the sun.
Oh, I like that. Great tips, great hacks. I love the music. Thanks for throwing out the suggestions. I'm going to have to check that out. This is a fun one for me. And setting the stage actually started last year in the early stage of the pandemic with my kids. And they noticed that dad just has their morning routine. And so I was talking with my kids, their ages, 4, 6, and 8, and they wanted to do the same thing, but they weren't sure how to get started. And so really it just started with me encouraging them to find a place in the house outside of mom and dad's bedroom. Any place else, hey, trampoline is fair game. And that was really helpful for them. And then I talked with them about a few things that I do. And one of the things I found to be really important for me, at least to get me started in the morning or motivated, especially when you're tempted to hit the snooze button, I call them cues. And so it's pre-staging. And so part of my pre-staging routine, and even my kids now are beginning to do this on most evenings before they go to bed, I'll at least stage my coffee cup under the Keurig. They're not quite doing that yet. They're getting their little cup of water. And then I select the resource. So what is it that I want to focus on in the morning? Perhaps it could be my Bible. It could be a personal growth book that I'm reading. I'm thinking about music. I don't have quite the playlist like you do, but I'm pre-staging it. And I feel like that's just helped with my mentality and my subconscious just before I'm going to bed. So I wake up, hopefully, while I might be tired, but that also comes to my mind that it's all pre-staged, so I'm ready to jump out of bed and get my coffee cup and then get started. And then I have an office area. And so there's a particular spot in my office where then I'll have all the items. So I'll try and have my pen out, I'll have my journal out, and then just ready to get started. And, you and I talk about this quite a bit too, with the routine that we talk about with our students called Rise Up, is this doesn't have to take long. So setting the stage gets you started, But it could be a matter of 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour-long routine, but just a few minutes can really help to get you started and focused to, become, like you were talking about earlier, the best version of yourself. So we hope that you all found that as an encouragement. I know that you are ready for us to transition into our next Dreamer and Doer interview. So let's tell you about our format. With Dreamers and Doers, each week we have the fortunate opportunity to be able to sit down with a different dreamer and doer who takes some time to share at least part of their dream story. But what we like to do on the Dreamers and Doers podcast is we love to focus in on those first few steps that were taken in the journey. And while they may have been hard and difficult and challenging, we hope it's going to encourage you and motivate you to get from the place you are today to the place, students, that I know that you want to get to tomorrow.
For sure. So let's meet our dreamer and doer, Melissa Wedman. She's the Head Sugar Slinger, CEO of Mollycoddled Hash Slinger. It's an artisan candy company focusing on supporting small micro businesses through supply chain. And so although Melissa did not grow up dreaming of becoming a professional candy maker, she was born with an entrepreneurial spirit, which was encouraged by her dad at a young age. Now, after pursuing a horticulture degree from OSU, she found herself in a role as an upper-level sales trainer and coach within the culinary smallware industry for nearly 13 years. In 2011, she lost her father, which was the inspiration for the accidental start of Mollycoddled Hash Slinger. Hi, Melissa.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Oh, good morning and great to see you.
Ew.
Melissa, I've heard you say this before. You've called yourself an excessive learner. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear about Carolyn and I share a little bit about how we set the stage, but just kind of curious, just off the bat, before we really get into Dreamers and Doers, do you happen to have any kind of particular routine for your personal growth and learning?
I do. Podcasts, honestly, are my best friend these days. As much as I love books, and I have quite the extensive library of business books, marketing books, all the things, when you're a busy mom running a business, sadly, there's not a lot of time for reading anymore. So podcasts and Audible are my two best friends. So I start my morning in the shower listening to a podcast or a book on Audible. And a lot of times even that's repeat on a book. I may have listened to the same book the year before, but every time I hear it, I take something new away from it. So my first hour or so of the day is spent learning. And then when I'm stuck in the candy making kitchen for 8 to 12 hours, my earbuds are in and I'm absorbing all kinds of information. So just finding those gaps of time that you can be passively learning is really key.
Oh, I love that. You heard us mention we like to curate different types of personal growth resources for our students. We do want to make mention that you have a podcast called Whisk Podcast, which is absolutely fantastic. Love the music, love the content, business content that you deliver. What are a couple, maybe 2, 3 of your favorite podcasts, or at least go-tos right now?
I love anything that Dave Ramsey Productions has put on. They've got Entree Leadership, and Christy Wright's got a great one for women, Women's Business Boutique. Really just any of Donald Miller with, it used to be Story Brand Podcast and now it's Business Made Simple. But, Mike Michalowicz is an amazing for the kind of accounting side with the Profit First model. So, but really you can't go wrong with anything that Dave Ramsey's group does or Donald Miller.
Melissa, you are speaking our language.
Yep, they're wonderful.
That is cool. Well, so you're an excessive learner, and this may be playing into our first question on the Dreamers and Doers podcast. We know that you're both a dreamer, but you're also a doer. But what do you consider yourself more naturally?
Split down the middle, to be honest. And maybe that's because I'm an ambivert. If I'm at a wedding and I don't know anyone, I'm the wallflower. But when I can get up and speak in front of thousands of people. So it's really just split down the middle. I'm a goal setter, but I like to reverse engineer my goals. So that's where the doing comes into play. We have a goal of opening a brick and mortar store for our candy company. And so it's working backwards. What does it take? Those monthly tasks, those weekly tasks, those daily tasks to get to that goal. So right down the middle.
Wow.
Melissa, you're already giving us a hack right now for our students to start thinking about reverse engineering. I think that's awesome.
Yep.
So good. Well, Melissa, we love our dreamer and doer guests to take us back to their childhood. And I don't know how far back you want to go, but we want to hear about the young dreamer and doer. I also heard too that you had a dream of working a business with Beanie Babies. Is that right?
Yeah. So as a kiddo that grew up in the early 90s, Beanie Babies were a huge part of my life. Like so many can, I'm sure, relate. And now they just sit in a tub in my attic and have become dog toys over the years. But
one day, Melissa. One day.
I was a daddy's girl growing up, and my dad naturally, like, we grew up middle class. And so to get extra money to do the fun things, Dad would go to pawn shops and garage sales and find treasures that he knew their value, whether it was a pocket knife or a fishing reel or a tool or something like that, and then turn around and sell it. And being a daddy's girl, I was clung to his hip. And my dad was like naturally the master negotiator with people, but he was just so down to earth and never met a stranger. So a lot of those skills I just naturally picked up, that learned behavior from him. And so we were at a garage sale one time, and I see this white polar bear that felt like a Beanie Baby and looked like a Beanie Baby, but the tag on it was black and white. And we were used to the red and white tags. And I looked at Daddy and I said, Dad, I think this is the Beanie Baby, but the hang tag's off and the tush tag looks a little weird. And he's like, well, how much do they want for it? And I said, well, they've got $2 on it, but it's got a stain on its back. He goes, well, go ask if they'll take 50 cents. And that's exactly what I did. So I bought this Chili the Polar Bear Beanie Baby, and I didn't know it was officially Thai at the time. eBay was really starting to emerge at this time. Went home and spot cleaned and got that spot off. And back then, Buchanan's Flea Market used to be at the state fairgrounds once a month. And there was a huge Beanie Baby dealer there every time. So I did my research. This was before the era of Google, really. And found out it was, in fact, a Chili the Polar Bear Beanie Baby. And it was the very first edition. That's why the tag was black and white. Did my research, found out that it had, in perfect condition, a value of $900 at that time. Paid 50 cents for it. So I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was probably somewhere between 8 and 10 years old, roughly. So Dad and I off to Buchanan's we go. I knew what I had in my hands. This Beanie Baby dealer that traveled all over the region was there. And I knew I wanted $500 cash for this Beanie Baby. And I sat there and negotiated with her, and I ended up with $200 in cash. She wouldn't budge anymore on the cash. But I turned around and I said, okay, if you can't budge on the cash, I know its value and I know you're going to sell it in profit, I would like my pick of 5 Beanie Babies you have here on your table. Wow. So I got $200 cash and 5 more Beanie Babies that I turned around and flipped and made more money. And I just remember like the look on my dad's face was like, oh my gosh, like, did my child really just do this? I mean, he just stood back. He was always so good about just standing back. Even when I bought my first new car, he went with me to the dealership, but I did all the negotiating myself and got like $12,000 off the sticker price. And we left there and my dad was like, I have never been more proud in my life. So, it's really just kind of one of those things. I feel like I'm living vicariously through my dad growing the company we have now, but really it's the foundation he provided me as a child to be able to nurture and grow that.
Wow.
I love hearing the story. And there's got to be people probably now looking for a Chili the Polar Bear.
Right. Or any of those ultra rare Beanie Babies. Yeah. Yes. I actually recently revisited all of those in my tub to see if there was any value. Yeah, no, not happening. Gone are the days. Sorry, Ty.
Well, Melissa, you didn't go on to sell Beanie Babies professionally.
No, I did not.
You didn't even start with candy, which was what you do now. Can you walk us through the journey of, you have this entrepreneurial spirit, but you're also doing sales, and that then leads you to candy. So tell us about that.
Well, I grew up in an agriculture family. I was in FFA growing up, 4-H. We showed livestock, all those fun things. And like so many high school kids, really didn't know where I wanted to land. I was also in DECA, so I loved the marketing and the sales side of the world, but really felt at home in the agriculture industry. But that's such a vast industry. So it was like, where can I niche down? Well, naturally, I love working in the yard. My mom has always worked in the yard. all of my grandparents had always had massive gardens that I was, especially my mom's dad in Western Oklahoma was right alongside him in the summer times, and really just felt at home in a greenhouse and felt at home with plants. So I had an amazing ag teacher in high school that he loved plants too, but most of his students went on for like ag econ and ag business degrees. And so when he learned that I loved horticulture, he kind of took me under his wing and helped me get a lot of scholarships to land at OSU, and started landscaping while I was still in college and floral design for special events like weddings, and loved it, but knew once I became a mom, I didn't really want to work 60 to 80 hours a week in the hot summers with a kiddo at home or kiddos at home. So I landscaped my last job when I was 7 months pregnant with our oldest, who is now 11. And of course, I got lots of strange looks being that pregnant, still physically doing the work, but my doctor okayed it. And I do still miss it. But, my calling continued to go down that path with sales and marketing. So it's really just where I belong.
Well, Melissa, let's continue to head in that direction, and let's get to the sweet part. I have a feeling a few students are thinking to themselves right now, I thought I heard candy about 10 minutes ago. So let's get to the candy. How did the sugar slinging begin?
Well, when we lost my dad was a foodie. He's the one that taught me how to cook. Bless my mom's heart. I love her dearly, but the only thing she can make is sweet tea and mashed potatoes. And so when we lost my dad, somewhat unexpectedly to heart disease, I was 25 years old and really just had this pull on my heart to create a sweet treat in his memory. And Dad and I, neither one have ever done anything normal in the kitchen. We love to experiment, and a lot of things fail, but a lot of things turn out really great as well. And I don't even know how it hit me. Maybe I was reading a book or reading a magazine. I'm not sure, but it was like, oh my gosh, Dad loved caramel, anything caramel. It might've been a Milky Way candy bar or the Toffee little hazelnut chocolate caramel, whatever. Or he'd sit down with a whole bag of Kraft caramels, which I'm surprised he never lost a tooth on, to be quite honest. Those are great to cook with, but they're not easy to sit and eat as a snack. So I really just started down that path of research. I mean, there is a science behind candy making, and it's not something you can just throw together in a pot and it turns out correctly. So went to go and make my first batch of caramels, and I wanted to make rum caramel. Sorry to the kids listening. Didn't have any rum in the house. So we tried whiskey, and that's how we landed our signature salted whiskey caramels. But now we have multiple alcohol-free flavors, if you will. But anyway, it was just kind of one of those aha, like, let's try caramel. That was easy as that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking us back to 2011 and what really gave birth to, this dream. Students, we're going to stick right here. No, a pun was intended. And we're going to get into the doing aspect, Melissa, in just a few minutes, of course, of what you're currently doing with the business. But we have an audio question from an aspiring 5-year-old. Her name is Adeline. So let's give this a listen.
Hi, my name is Adeline and I'm 5 years old. And one day I hope to start my own business. My question for Melissa is, after failing so many times to make your camels, what motivated you to keep trying?
Oh my gosh, great question, Adeline. First of all, I had several businesses before this business, and I don't want to say they're failures. They just didn't get me to where I am today. So never be afraid to fail. If you don't have those failures, you won't get to a success. Secondly, passion. If you find what you're passionate about, you can make a business out of it. And when you find that passion, you have that motivation to make it successful. So just find what you love. It can be dog sitting, it can be babysitting, anything.
Oh, that was so sweet. Finding the passion and bringing it back to that, and not being afraid to fail. Well, Melissa, part of your mission is not just making some of the best candies ever in the caramels, but it's also to help other entrepreneurs and some small micro businesses. And so can you tell us, just your heart for this and how you've been doing that?
Sure. Well, part of that goes back to my dad again and how we were raised. We were raised to support Made in America, small business products first and foremost. I'll never forget when our Walmart in our hometown started adding self-check registers and how infuriated my dad was at that. And I was a little puzzled at that age until he explained to me why. And so, it was the simple things of going downtown to the small hardware store over going to the big chain hardware store. And he would educate us on why that was so important. And so, or we'd be at the grocery store and he would read a label. If it was made in America, he would buy it and spend a little more than something that wasn't. So that was really the mission. And part of that passion is not only how he raised us, but to support the values of how important small business is. 65% of all businesses in America are small businesses, and even more so, they're micro businesses. I've been there and done that. I know how hard it is as a micro business to get to that next step, because let's face it, a small business really isn't all that small. But these are our neighbors, they're our friends, there are church members, there are people around you that you need to support their dream, their vision, and what they bring to the community, more than a large corporation that, maybe a small percentage of that money stays in the community.
That's good. Appreciate that so much, Melissa. I'm imagining some of our students right now are thinking that Melissa has the best job ever. And I think you do. And when they think about candy, can you just give us a little snapshot of what it takes to do what you do?
It takes a lot of time in a hot kitchen and on my feet. But honestly, the research and development is the fun part. Research. The science behind candy, it's not just throwing sugar in a pot and thinking it's going to turn out. And sometimes even your grandma's recipe won't turn out in this day and age because of ingredient changes and environmental changes. On a rainy day, caramels don't turn out very well. So it's really just a lot of fun. It's great to be creative, from new flavor profiles we create to marketing and selling that product. So lots of long hours in the beginning. The first couple of years we were in business, it was not unusual for me to pull 80 to 100-hour weeks, wake up, hit the ground running, stay up way past the time everybody in the house was still asleep. But that was because we bootstrapped this business. We started with $1,000 of owner capital. I did all of my label design ourselves and searched high and low to find the right price for the right supply. So lots of sugar being slung everywhere.
Like 12 hours yesterday.
Was. Yes. And this isn't even a holiday timeframe, per se. During the Q4 of each year, from, really October through December, it's pulling 12 to 16 hours a day. And we wouldn't change it for the world. That's not at all a complaint. We absolutely love what we do.
Oh, I know. Melissa, I was just thinking, if we have a few of our students that are into math, they might be thinking back about how you mentioned when you were working, you didn't want to do like the 60 to 80 hours, but doing this business, something that you love, you're
back at it.
So what makes the difference? And I think there's a huge point here that you can make. A question that we love to ask our dreamers and doers, and it's evident that you fall in this category, is that you can tell that you love what you do. You pour your love into every piece of candy, every wrapped candy, every boxed candy. So what kind of makes a difference between that 60-hour work week and maybe right now up to that 100-hour work week?
I think it goes back to passion. We can be good at a lot of things. I was a good landscape designer, but when I kind of go back to that world, I think I did it because I had the scholarship and I was good at it. But everything that I keep going back to in life, in my journey, even with my previous career as a trainer and coach in the culinary industry, it goes back to my calling, and I just keep getting that pull to the food industry. I keep getting that pull to being an entrepreneur. There is nothing wrong with having multiple careers in your life. But yeah, it's just a different kind of work now. 60 to 70 hours a week, landscaping felt more exhausting than beyond that now in a candy kitchen. And maybe it's the Oklahoma heat in the summer being outside versus in the kitchen. I don't know. But really, I feel like God has finally put me in the place that I truly belong.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, landscaping in San Diego might be a little bit different than landscaping in Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. There's lots of clay and rock to get through here.
Melissa, we know you're working on a lot of things, but can you let us in perhaps on a dream that you're working on right now?
The continuous goal is to create that flagship retail store in the Oklahoma City area for anybody to come and visit us. Our goal is to have a big open area where you can peek your head through and watch the candy be made. And we want to have that one-on-one time with our customers. We reverse engineered the growth, and coming from the retail management world, I knew how hard it would be to start a business with that on the front end. So we got into a commercial kitchen and have worked behind the scenes for about 5 years now. And now we're finally at that point. It's time for that retail store. So we're just so excited to bring yet another made in Oklahoma product, for tourism or locals to come in. And you know what? This toffee has Oklahoma pecans in it. It was made by hand. I'm going to send it to my cousin in Vermont. Yeah. And so we've shipped to 49 of 50 states, and we get a lot of that from our customers now is, hey, we want to send a piece of Oklahoma to a client, to my mom, to my friend, whatever it may be. So we're just excited to create that space that you can come and see how candy was made 100 years ago. This is not mass produced. This is with these hands right here.
I love it. Melissa, what is the 50th state that we need to send your candy to?
Actually, it's Vermont. For some crazy reason, we ship a lot to California and New York, and a lot to Florida and Texas. But for some weird reason, Vermont has been left out. So,
well, we are going to get working on that. How does that sound?
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Well, we must find someone for sure. I love just hearing your vision for the storefront and that tying back to, of course, I feel like the overall vision of Mollycoddled and your mission as well. And also I have to thank you for this, is just sharing about the real side of what it means to own a candy business, because sometimes I think we can imagine it's just a lot of fun colors and flavors and chocolate everywhere, which I'm sure it is as well. But
it is, yes, I know. And honestly, at this point, I don't even eat my own candy unless we're testing a new something. Like right now, we're working on a very I can't say the name, but I like to recreate better versions of things sometimes. And right now we're recreating a better version of that flaky, peanut buttery, chocolate covered candy bar. So that I have probably gained 5 or 6 pounds testing the batches. So like so many, it's a roller coaster of, okay, we'll go back to watching how much candy I eat for a few weeks after that test. But yeah, it is a lot of fun, but I am overall kind of burned out on our own candy.
Well, so thanks for taking one for the team. That's for sure.
Anytime.
So I love getting to ask this question, and I feel like you've already spoken so much into maybe the dreams of our students and how they can pursue that. But, talking to maybe your middle school self or your high school self, what's something that you wish you could say to them right now?
That's a really tough question. I feel like growing up the way I did with a supportive family to try all these different things really set me up to not have any regrets from middle school and high school. I might have backed off of playing sports a little bit and been a little more involved in DECA and FCCLA than I was. I was an officer and I was somewhat involved, but I definitely could have been more involved with those organizations. But I don't know that I'd change a thing about middle school and high school. I was the kiddo that didn't go do the things I shouldn't have been doing. I worked. I had my first job at 14 and a half. Guys, it's okay to work fast food. I worked at McDonald's for about a year until I got essentially headhunted by somebody that watched me work and offered me a position as an executive assistant. And I was her executive assistant for the rest of high school and into part of college. But some family friends of ours owned McDonald's in our hometown. And I went in on the weekends and I did their birthday parties back when McDonald's had birthday parties. Just go and get the experiences, I think. Experience all you can. Soak it up. Get different kinds of jobs to help you figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life.
That's good. there's someone that I think we mutually admire, which is Dave Ramsey, that says if you want to live like no one else lives, you got to live like no one else.
Yeah.
What made you, I'm curious, just what influenced you around the age of maybe 14 and a half? I'm sure you saw your friends, your peers around you, doing other things, being parts, whether it's I'm sure you did a few of these, but social events and parties, but what led you in that other direction around that age?
I think it was growing up in a family that always had tremendous work ethic that naturally made me have one. But it also was growing up in a family, seeing a lot of family members maybe not love their job, to make me realize that life is too short to hate what you do for a living. And that kind of set the fire for me at an early age to go, you know what, I need to start figuring this out now, because I don't want to go to college and hate my job. And so really, that's probably what I would encourage if I were to go back to that age, is keep finding the fun things. Life is way too short to hate what you do for a living. Now, I'm not saying have bad work ethic and change jobs every 6 months either. There is a certain degree of life of, gritting and bearing it and doing those things that you hate for a little while to get that experience. But there's that balance of hating your job and making really good money versus loving your job and making a little less. You have to find that balance.
Well, Melissa, for this last part of the interview, we have one more question for you. You've already shared a lot of gold, but we love to give our dreamer and doer guest 1 minute, 60 seconds to share whatever is on your heart to encourage, either the dreamer or the doer that is listening. So, Melissa, are you ready?
Sure.
All right, set and go.
Well, I think especially this last year with a pandemic, it's brought a lot of different things to light for so many of us. I think I would just encourage everybody to do what truly makes your heart happy, and don't worry about what someone else says. Ignore the opinions of your friends. And as long as you do have a support team. Now, the one thing I have found in life is your parents and your best friends are the first to almost discourage you from something sometimes. And it's because they love you so much, they don't want to see you hurt. And so you have to a lot of times believe in yourself more than someone else believes in your vision. So get out there and try it. What is the worst thing that can happen? You figure out it doesn't work and you move on. So life is about experiences. Do your research. If you're religious, pray about it. But find that support system, that one person that's in your circle that's positive and uplifting, so you can have somebody to hold your feet to the fire when times get a little harder.
That's so good. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing that, and just speaking into the dreamers and the doers out there that are listening, our students that are, I bet, are experiencing the same thing right now of, what if my parents don't support me in my dream right now? Or what if I don't know what my dream is? And so thanks for just.
Yeah. And I think if you do your research and make a plan, set a goal and work backwards, it's easier for your parents to believe in you and agree to let you try something when they've seen that you've done the work behind it.
That's awesome. Yes, totally agreed. Students, make a presentation. Pitch it to your parents.
Yes. Make their jaw hit the floor.
Well, Melissa, this has been absolutely fantastic. We know you're very busy. Thank you for carving out the time for us. Before we let you go back into the kitchen or network or getting ready to box and ship out some candy to Vermont, and we're going to get to work on that. And we'll include, of course, all of this in the show notes, but how can our students and how can our listeners best find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. I just created a TikTok account and I have no idea what we're doing. So kiddos, if y'all are on TikTok, go to Mollycoddled Hash Slinger and tell me what I should do. I feel like doing videos of wrapping candy is boring, but maybe that's not. So anyway, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. And of course, you can always email me to melissa@mollycoddledhashslinger.net.
Well, again, Melissa, thank you so much for just pouring and investing into us today. Thank you for making us better.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you, Melissa. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Carolyn, I feel like we had an opportunity to have a conversation with a modern day Willy Wonka.
I know. I was like, I really want to see into her kitchen and see how many different sugars she has. And I don't know, I'm like, the packaging part even sounds cool. I honestly don't think I would watch a video on packaging. So
well, in just a few minutes, I know what I'll be unwrapping, and it's going to be one of these candies right here.
Oh, I'm going to run up and grab some as well. I'm excited about that.
Yes. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We want to remind you that you can check out all things leadership, and we have plenty of resources for you to check out: our podcast, blog. You can learn about our upcoming events and our programming. We have lots of digital programming offerings as well, too, if you don't live in Oklahoma. And you can find all of that at loveworksleadership.org.
For sure. And make sure that you also reach out to us if you have any suggestions on who to interview in the future, or if you just want to reach out, you have an idea. We are available. It's on our website. There, our personal contact, including Michael's phone number. So
it is definitely out there. And if you text me, I'll of course respond back and I'll say hi, but I'll encourage you to subscribe to our Dreamers and Doers podcast. That would be awesome. And like every other podcast out there, we're not going to ask you for 5-star reviews. We're just going to ask you for any kind of review, because we really do want to make this the best possible podcast that can encourage your young leadership growth.
And remember, real leaders, they don't blend in, but they stand out.
Dream big, everybody.
And do your dream.